Pandava Road after the Mahabharata kingdom. But then when the Britishers came in, a clerk who was making the entries, he mistook V for R, and unfortunately that was never corrected. So we are stuck with Pandara Road as of now.
But why even Pandava Road? I mean, I don't understand why a road, because it is situated in New Delhi, the Delhi that was the Lutyens' Delhi. So why would they name any road as Pandava Road?
So from my knowledge of this, in the time of the Mahabharata, the Pandav's kingdom, Indraprasth, was in what we call modern day Delhi. So I believe one road was named after them to commemorate that rich history that we have.
What are other Delhis we know historically?
Sorry, sir, could you?
What are other Delhis we know historically?
So primarily it begins with the Delhi Sultanate, although before that we also had Anangpal, which was ruled by the Tomar dynasty. But with the Delhi Sultanate, there were 7 sister cities of Delhi, like Siri, Jahanpana, Firozabad, Tughlakabad. Most famous was Shahjahanabad, which was established by Shah Jahan, the Mughal emperor. And today the remnants of that are Old Delhi, Chandni Chowk area, so to say. So today now we're left with Old Delhi and New Delhi.
You just mentioned this Anangpal Tomar thing. Where was his Delhi located?
It was called Dhilika at that time, and I'm not sure of the exact location, sir. But
and what was the period?
It was the 9th to 11th century AD.
9th to 11th is 200 years and still no remnants?
There must be remnants.
Why I asked you is that recently we heard that the government is pushing to rewrite Delhi's history and give more prominence to Anangpal Tomar, which we don't know much about. We don't know much about is one of the reasons why we don't know much about is that maybe he is not the most significant of a Delite that way. Do you believe this idea of overemphasizing certain aspect of history and then obviously underemphasizing certain other aspects of history is a good idea?
Sir, I think it's inevitable sometimes. Whoever writes history will have their own lenses of looking at it. And that's why it may happen that some rulers might get prioritized over the others. But I believe it's good now that the Delhi government is trying to highlight the contribution of other...
Delhi government or the central government?
So as far as my knowledge goes, the Delhi government is pushing for Anangpal, but I could be mistaken. It could be the central government as well. But regardless, sir, the government...
What is your understanding? Why Anangpal and Prithviraj Chauhan are being underlined in comparison to certain others which they believe were overemphasized in certain history writing?
Sir, I think there could be 2 reasons why this is good and required. One is it always helps to show the diverse lineage of a place. It helps us understand the history, the various types of circumstances that shape Delhi and the way it is. And second, I believe it could also give a boost to tourism in some ways. For far too long, the tourism that we've had in Delhi, even the 3 UNESCO sites, are of the medieval era.
Current phenomenon, in the way current times are, do you really believe that showing Anangpal and Prithviraj will add to diversity or it will actually go against diversity?
So I think it will definitely add to the diversity.
Why do you think so? Because everybody can clearly see that we are talking about a certain right-wing movement in which a particular religion being highlighted and other being not. And bringing Anangpal and Prithviraj instead of Mughals and already written history thing should actually be going against diversity.
So there will always be in any country many ideologies. So that being kept aside, I think the fact that we've already know enough about Mughals, it's not like we're trying to reduce their significance. We already have 2 or 3 World Heritage Sites which have to do with the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals. So I think it would be great to highlight that there were so many other rulers. It is also pragmatically good, more tourism revenue. We could also become a World Heritage City. That's something we're bidding for. So I think the more the merrier, sir.
Fine, thank you. So,
thank you, sir.
Saloni, you know, we have 3 distinct notions of ownership of resources. One, individual or private ownership, another is state ownership, and a third kind is community ownership of resources. Sundarlal Bahuguna recently died. He throughout his life argued for and pressed for community ownership of natural resources, which a scholar received Nobel Prize for this kind of advocacy of community ownership.
So nothing strikes the mind as of now.
She was Elinor Ostrom. She received 2009 Nobel Prize. She was expert of political science but received in category of economics. how do you think this notion of ownership can make the whole growth and development process sustainable?
So the economic survey spoke about ethical wealth creation. And I believe right now, especially today, we need our growth to be more holistic, to consider the environment, to consider social aspects of it. So I believe collective ownership helps because the more stakeholders we have, the more diverse perspectives we get. For example, one example of this is the CSR initiatives we have, where corporates are trying to diversify where they spend their money. So I think it will help, sir, in achieving the goals of sustainable development.
But your state Jharkhand, most of the mines and ores which were owned by the local community tribals have been nationalized by the government first of all, and then handed over or leased out to private corporate entities. So in an indirect manner, it's a kind of colonial exploitation of resources with similar implications. We can say that it is being done by our independent government. But for the local community, the impact is same.
So I think the government taking over the mines was an administrative necessity and still is. But I believe along with that, the district mineral funds which exist, those should be used in a much more judicious way to help the people. The Forest Rights Act. So I believe there are other legislations and policies which can offset the issues that may be created due to such ownership of the mines.
So why the local people there are upset with the entire policy of state for last 70-80 years?
So because the benefits of these explorations have not trickled down adequately to the tribals and the poor people, I agree, sir. But we've also come a long way. Even Jharkhand, the multidimensional poverty index, praised it for lifting so many millions of people out of poverty in the last 10 years. And yes, there is discontent which exists, but I think in a way that should motivate the governance to do better for the people, and I think we're trying to do that, sir.
Now many people are questioning universal franchise given to all the citizens of India. Do you think that it was a mistake by the constitution makers to provide voting right to all and sundry?
Sir, if anything, I think it's the best thing the constitution makers did. In fact, I read somewhere it's one of the reasons why India's democracy did not suffer the fate of other countries where democracy collapsed. So I think it was a great step, sir.
Feel that we should reduce voting age further from 18 to 16 years of age? Many countries have done it already.
Yes, sir. So it could be looked into. I don't see an issue in that, but yes, it should be backed with some adequate research that 16-year-olds
can you extend some arguments against universal franchise?
Yes, sir. Several thinkers and philosophers have said that not everyone can have adequate knowledge of who the right person to vote is. Moreover, the fact that some people can be swayed by freebies and other such things which are provided to buy votes. So then the decision making should be restricted to people who have the so-called knowledge to understand. So I believe that could be one argument. And second could be we see there is a plebeianization of politics as it's called in India. So those two, sir, are the reasons I can think of right now.
Do you feel that mobocracy is emerging due to this universal franchise?
No, sir. I think quite the opposite because so there can never be a guarantee that few people can ever decide what's best for any country or a state. So I think the more people we have, the more diverse perspectives we will have. And I don't think there is a mobocracy, sir. I think we are mostly in a good path, sir.
Are we a decent nation?
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Okay. The government has a very clearly declared policy that it will tax the rich citizens and transfer